Night is coming. One by one the stars appear. Night is coming. And soon it will be time for stories. Long ago, storytellers invented magical stories about the sun, moon, stars, and the other great mysteries of the sky. The stories were not meant to explain these mysteries. Rather, they were told to help people pay attention to our world. Today, scientists use another way to help us pay attention to the mysteries of the sky. By observing, measuring, and predicting, they explain how the world works. And like the storytellers of old, today's scientists can lead us to better know and care for our world. Storytellers and scientists are today's SkyTellers, for they both tell us about the sky. And though each tells a different kind of story, both help us to better know our world and ourselves. Night is here. Listen now. This is the time for stories.
An old man came wandering into the land. He was a fierce old man with white flowing hair. Wherever he stepped, the land grew hard as flint. When he breathed upon the trees and other plants, their leaves grew red and died and fell to the ground. The birds fled before him as he walked through the rivers and streams where the water stopped flowing and turned to stone. Finally, he reached the shores of a wide lake. There, just below a tall mountain, he stopped. He gathered together trees that had been uprooted by the storm winds and made them the frame of his lodge, which he covered with ice, filling in the cracks with snow. In the center of his lodge he made a fire, which flickered with a pale light that gave off no heat. This old man's name was Hatawane, and his only friend was the cold north wind. All other beings stayed far away from that place where the two of them sat together, sharing their stories of how they made it difficult for all living things to survive. Hatawane would say, "It is good the way we have brought hunger to this land, the way we have buried villages in snow and frozen the deer in the forest. It is good the way we make people fall asleep and never wake again." The north wind would agree. "It is good. It is very good indeed." One morning, though, the two of them woke feeling that something was different. The air seemed hard to breathe, and when they looked outside, what they saw surprised them. "Neho!" North Wind cried. "Look there! Steam is rising from the snow, and the ice is smoking. The drifts of snow are growing smaller. We must go from here." "My house is strong," the old man said. "I will not leave." "Whoa!" North Wind replied. "I cannot stay." Then he flew high to the top of the northern mountains. There his courage returned to him as he danced upon the crusted snow. The old man, Hatawane, he remained in his lodge. Despite his brave words, he felt tired. But as he started to fall asleep, someone lightly struck the door of his lodge. "It is my friend, the North Wind, trying to play a trick on me," the old man thought. But then a knock came again, so hard that it rattled the lodge door. "Who is there?" Hatawane said. "Only my friend, the cold North Wind, can enter my lodge." This time, though, when the knock came, it was so strong that ice fell from the walls of the lodge. "Go away, or be frozen," the old man shouted. But another knock came that made the whole lodge shake, and then a fourth knock that knocked the door down. There stood a young man with a smile upon his face and a green stick in his hand. He sat down by the fire and began to stir it with his stick. As he did so, that cold fire grew warm, and the old man felt sweat began to run down his face. "Who are you?" Hatawane said. "Why do you make my fire warm? Why does light shine from your skin? Why do you not fall asleep when I breathe upon you? You do not belong here. Go away." Then he tried to blow his cold breath upon the young stranger, but only a thin mist came from his mouth. The young man smiled. "Old man," he said, Let me stay here just a little longer." Now the old man grew angry.
"Do you not know who I am? I am mighty and fearful. I make the ice and snow and frost. All living things flee from me."
But as he spoke, he felt himself growing weaker. "Hatowane," the young man said, "do you not know me? I am Dios Nuiekton. You are old, and I am young and strong. Where I breathe, the grass grows tall and the flowers bloom. The birds and animals answer my call. Look how your hair is falling out, and how the snowdrifts are melting away. I am here, and my friend Dakaenda, the south wind, is here with me. It is time for you to leave." The old man began to shrink, growing smaller and smaller. The walls of his lodge fell in. Then an eagle swooped down and carried him off to the north. Where Hatowane's cold fire had burned, there was now a circle of white flowers. The sun shone, and the river ran. The birds sang, and the animals played in the new grass. Once again, Dios Nuiekton had overcome Hatowane. Once again, young man Spring had defeated old man Winter.
In the tale of Old Man Winter and Young Man Spring, Old Man Winter's lodge fire gave off no heat until Young Man Spring made it so. In those days, the people realized that their own lodge fires kept them warm while they waited for spring to return. When they were cold, they had only to move closer to the fire to be warm. If they got too hot near the fire, they could move farther away to cool off. Some people, even today, think the seasons themselves are caused by this same effect, that summer comes when the earth moves closer to the sun and warms up, and winter arrives when it moves farther away and cools off. But this is not why we have seasons. It is not why Old Man Winter and Young Man Spring come and go. The seasons change on earth for another reason entirely. And it's time now for a science story to tell us why. From the beginning, most people realized that the seasons had something to do with the sun, for the sun seemed to change its behavior as the seasons changed. This is something we can notice even today. Let's use our imaginations now and think back to summertime, around the 4th of July. Let's imagine that it's a warm and sunny day around lunchtime. Now, if we want to find the sun around lunchtime on the 4th of July, where do we look? We have to look high in the sky, toward the south, but nearly overhead. For in the summertime, the sun's daily path takes it high across the sky. It rises early in the day, passes close to overhead at noon, and sets late. We have longer days and short, warm nights, and all the world around us is green and growing. Now think about what things are like 6 months later, around New Year's Day in winter. It's lunchtime again. Where do we look if we want to find the sun? This time, we must look low in the south, for in wintertime, the sun's daily path takes it low across the sky. It rises late, makes a small arc across the southern sky, and sets early. We have shorter days and longer, colder nights. All around us, the world is brown and sleeping, and in some places even covered with a blanket of snow. If we watched for a whole year, we would see what people long ago saw. They saw that when the sun sailed high across the sky, the weather was warm and the crops grew tall. But then, as the sun's daily path slipped lower, the air cooled and the crops began to die. Old Man Winter's frosty breath turned leaves red, and autumn came. When the sun reached its lowest in the sky, Old Man Winter brought ice and snow and invited the north wind to howl over the land. and it was winter time. But then, as the sun's daily path began to rise again in the sky, the world slowly began to warm. Young man spring made old man winter sweat and chased him and north wind away, and brought flowers and the returning green of springtime. And when once again the sun rode highest in the sky, summer had returned. But what is it that makes the sun seem to behave this way, and how does it affect the seasons? To solve this riddle, let's imagine the blue-white earth in space circling around the sun once each year. Its path or orbit is nearly a circle, so its distance from the sun changes only a little. In fact, for people on the north half or northern hemisphere of the Earth is actually closest to the sun around New Year's Day in the wintertime, and farthest from the sun around the 4th of July in the summertime. This is just the opposite of what we would expect if it was Earth's distance from the sun that caused the seasons. So it must indeed be something else that is responsible for the seasons. We know that the sun seems to cross our sky during the day because Earth is spinning. It spins once each day, carrying us around to face toward the sun to give us daytime, and then to face away, giving us night. But why does the sun's daily path change from being low across the sky in the winter and high in the sky in the summer? It must have something to do with the Earth. And so it does. For the Earth does not sit upright in its orbit around the sun. It's tipped over a little bit. We call this the Earth's tilt. And it is the tilt of the Earth that makes all the difference in our sun's changing path. The Earth's tilt stays the same as it circles or orbits the sun. That means that during one part of the year, our northern half, the northern hemisphere of the Earth, is tilted toward the sun. It shines most directly upon us, and we have summer. But 6 months later, the Earth has circled around to the other side of its orbit. Now, our northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun, and we have winter. Spring and fall, then, are the in-between times. We have autumn as our northern hemisphere cools off on its way to winter, and spring is the time that we start warming back up on our way to summer. Look again at our tilted Earth. You can see that the northern and southern halves of the Earth are tilted in opposite directions. That means that when our northern half is tilted toward the sun and has summer, the southern half is tilted away and has winter. And when the southern half has summer, we in the north have winter. The opposite halves or hemispheres of the Earth have opposite seasons. And so it goes. One season follows another as our tilted Earth circles the sun. But the Earth isn't the only thing that changes with the seasons. You change too. You change how you dress, and you change the things you do outdoors. Next time the winter seems too long, and you wonder if the sun is ever coming back, let these stories remind you of how the tilted Earth circles the sun, and how the sun warms all of Earth's people, how the seasons follow one after another, and how young man spring will always come back to defeat old man winter, and spring will return.